Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. 5 of the world's largest banks on Wednesday became convicted criminal entities, pleading guilty to manipulating the foreign currency markets and agreeing to pay billions in fines. The 5 banks are Barclays, Citigroup, JP Morgan, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and UBS. The banks admit that rogue traders formed a cartel and set up a key currency marker every day at 4 p.m. London time to fix the price of currency at a mutually beneficial rate. This marker was used to set prices in the $5 trillion currency market. According to prosecutors, traders used instant messaging chat rooms to set the prices each day. Here is the U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
We are here to announce a major law enforcement action against international financial institutions that for years participated in a brazen display of collusion and foreign exchange rate market manipulation, and will, as a result, pay a total of nearly $3 billion in fines and penalties.
Here's a breakdown of the fines, with Barclays to pay the largest fine at just under $2 billion. Thaya Knight, the Associate Director of Financial Regulation Studies at the libertarian-leaning Cato Institute, joins us now from Washington, D.C. Thaya, welcome to Arise Xchange. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You can't put a bank behind bars. So what did the banks admit to here, and does the fine really give them any sort of real pain?
Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. Obviously, you can't put a bank behind bars. The criminal charge does 2 things. One, it's sort of a public statement of censure. This is saying this is a bad thing that they did. The other thing is that there's a financial penalty. But one of the problems with these big banks is that it's very hard to set a penalty high enough that it would actually be painful for them.
Wouldn't it be more painful if they put senior executives in jails?
Well, they haven't foreclosed the possibility of charging individuals. That's still on the table. The question of whether, that would be very painful for those individuals, whether that would be painful for the entity as a whole is a different question. I know that Barclays was forced to fire several traders as part of this agreement. Typically in these situations, you do have some people getting let go from their jobs. So it's not that these people just wake up the next day and go back to work, the same as always.
We do expect some probable individual indictments, and we'll see sort of how that shakes out. For these banks, really, there's this concept of too big to fail, and that it may rattle the financial markets. Was there any thinking that the DOJ couldn't go farther?
They are walking this line here. So, there's been this showcase of, here we have these banks, they're the biggest banks, we're holding their feet to the fire, there's not going to be any more too big to fail or too big to jail. But there really is a question of how close to the brink they can push them. The federal government has doubled down on this too big to fail. I know, Dodd-Frank is supposed to provide for an unwinding process for these big banks, but honestly, with the SIFI designation, the Systemically Important Financial Institutions designation,
which is the too big to fail designation, basically.
Right. It's basically the government identifying for the markets and everybody else, these institutions are the ones that are too big to fail. And, Citigroup is right up there, JP Morgan Chase. It's hard to name two.
And they know it too. So they know it
banks.
too, so they could do certain things and thinking that they get away with it. Usually a bank or a corporation will settle with the government and not admit any wrongdoing. This is a very different case here. And frankly, for the new Attorney General, a pretty blockbuster announcement of one of her first cases that she has shown publicly for. Why did they force a guilty plea?
Well, I think that the government has a clear interest in showing that they are not going to be bullied by big banks. There's a question of whether the big banks actually can bully the federal government, but that has been the rhetoric since the crisis. So there's definitely an interest from a political standpoint and an image standpoint to make sure it looks like they're being very tough on these banks.
And Thaya, we have to draw a distinction here between the debate over regulations and over criminal activity. Price fixing is a criminal activity.
It is, and this is bad activity. What we have is these traders who are colluding to set prices, and that is very bad in a market, and especially when it's secret, as it is here, because price fixing is illegal, it's going to be secret. One of the most important things that a market does is price discovery, and you can't figure out what the price is if there are people secretly setting it at a certain rate.
Okay.
And it's hard to underestimate how broad the effects of the Forex market are. I mean, this touches international trade, all kinds of parts of many countries' economies.
Yeah, that's right. You don't hear much for the average person in the Forex market, but it does affect everybody. Thaya Knight, the Associate Director of the Financial Regulation Studies at the Cato Institute. Thank you. We will be hearing a lot more about this over the next few days.
Thank you very much.